Today's book is called The Big Orange Splat. By Daniel Manis Pinkwater. The Big Orange Splat. For Estelle Schutz. Mr. Plumbean lived on a street where all the houses were the same. He liked it that way. So did everybody else on Mr. Plumbean's street. This is a neat street, they would say. Then one day, a seagull flew over Mr. Plumbean's house. He was carrying a can of bright orange paint. No one knows why. And he dropped the can, no one knows why, right over Mr. Plumbean's house. It made a big orange splat on Mr. Plumbean's house. Ooh, too bad, everyone said. Mr. Plumbean will have to paint his house again. I suppose I will, said Mr. Plumbean. But he didn't paint his house right away. He looked at the big orange spot for a long time. Then he went about his business. The neighbors got tired of seeing that big orange spot. Someone said, "Mr. Plumbean, we wish you'd get around to painting your house." "Okay," said Mr. Plumbean. There's that spot. He got some blue paint and some white paint, and that night he got busy. He painted at night because it was cooler, and when the paint was gone, the roof was blue, the walls were white, and the big orange spot was still there. Then he got some more paint. He got red paint, yellow paint, green paint, and purple paint. He's painting his roof. In the morning, the other people on the street came out of their houses. Their houses were all the same, but Mr. Plumbean's house was like a rainbow. It was like a jungle. It was like an explosion. What a cool house he's got there. It's very different from everybody else's. I wonder how they're going to feel about that. There was the big orange spot. And there were little orange spots. There were stripes. There were pictures of elephants and lions and pretty girls and steam shovels. Ooh. The people said, "Plumbean has popped his cork, flipped his wig, blown his stack, and dropped his stopper." It means he's going crazy. They went away muttering. That means they were talking quietly, kind of under their breath. That day, Mr. Plumbean bought carpenter's tools. That night, he built a tower on the top of his roof, and he painted a clock on the tower. What a cool house. Let's see what his clock tower looks like. Wow! The next day, the people said, "Plumbean has gushed his mush, lost his marbles, and slipped his hawser." They decided that they would pretend not to notice. That very night, Mr. Plumbean got a truck full of green things. He planted palm trees, baobabs, thorn bushes, onions, and frangipani. In the morning, he bought a hammock and an alligator. Wow, he bought an alligator. He's got all kinds of plants in the back of his truck there. When the other people came out of their houses, they saw Mr. Plumbean swinging in a hammock between two palm trees. They saw an alligator laying in the grass. Mr. Plumbean was drinking lemonade. What a house. What a scene. Plumbean has gone too far. This used to be a neat street. "Plumbean, what have you done to your house?" the people shouted. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," Mr. Plumbean said. The people went away. They asked the man who lived next door to Mr. Plumbean to go and have a talk with him. Tell him that we all liked it here before he changed his house. Tell him that his house has to be the same as ours so we can have a neat street. What do you think? Do all the houses need to look the same in order to have a neat street? The man went to see Mr. Plumbean that evening. They sat under the palm trees drinking lemonade and talking all night long. There's his neighbor going to visit him. Early the next morning, the man went out to get lumber and rope and nails and paint. And when the people came out of their houses, they saw a red and yellow ship next door to the house of Mr. Plumbean. Whoa. What have you done to your house? They shouted at the man. My house is me and I am it. My house is where I like to be and it looks like all my dreams, said the man, who had always loved ships. He's just like Plumbean, the people said. He's got bees in his bonnets, bats in his belfry, and knots in his noodle. Then, one by one, they went out to see Mr. Plumbean late at night, and they would sit under the palm trees and drink lemonade and talk about their dreams. And whenever anybody visited Mr. Plumbean's house, the very next day, that person would set about changing his own house to fit his dreams. Wow. Check out those houses. Castle. A Parthenon. The lady up at the top. Maybe a man, I'm not sure. Whenever a stranger came to the street of Mr. Plumbean and his neighbors, the stranger would say, "This is not a neat street." Then all the people would say, "Our street is us and we are it. Our street is where we like to be and it looks like all our dreams." And that is the end of the Big Orange